It's time for another World War I diorama, and I'm gonna draw it out here and sketch out what I want. I've been thinking about another wall made out of styrofoam. That's how everything started out, but things always can change when you're, you're in the process of a big project like this and you're not sure of your own skills sometimes. So I started with a piece of styrofoam, the insulation type you can get at the hardware home store. Marked it up so I could do bricks. This diorama was going to be World War I, Belgian Liege. Obviously, once the city was bombed, getting ready to be taken over by the Germans of World War I. Well, I marked everything out, and everything was going really well. I marked for the bricks, and I etched it with my X-Acto knife, so that way everything was as good as I could get it. I'm way better at, I feel like, Magic Sculpt because I've done it so much. So whatever you're comfortable with, you're always gonna feel like you're doing a better job, and you just have more confidence. But I really like the styrofoam, and I want to incorporate it more. In a few of my other videos, you've seen some styrofoam. So I've got everything kind of laid out here and etched for the bricks, at least vertically. Now horizontally, I used a pencil to carve in the vertical lines. I've done this before with this pencil, and it seemed okay. So here's a look at the model so far, diorama, base and everything put together. And of course I wanted to put a street light in, so one from Mini Art. And here's the base laid out with some styrene, and the curb and the street cobblestone section is going to have to be put in place. I added the downspout and windows to the bricks, and the bricks were kind of crazy looking, and here's a little view of some of my reference, and well, everything fit, and I made the downspout for the water drainage to go through, and you can see where it's supposed to go to the street there, and I've made a small area for the drainage grate to go. The next thing I did was start painting the styrofoam bricks with a dark brown. It's to me is flat brown, and I just wanted to get a undercoat on it. The styrofoam, you can't spray it. I could have sprayed it, I guess, with acrylics, but I just wanted to paint it. And then with a sponge, I just got some brick colors, and I've done this before, where I just sponged on different colors on the bricks. This worked out really, really well. It's a great effect, and it worked great for bricks. I've done this, and it's real fun to do, actually. You start seeing everything come alive. The brick starts standing out. And then, of course, with spackling, I added a little bit of gray paint in with it, and I think I went a little too dark. I wanted to try something a little different, so it wouldn't be so stark white, but the gray was kind of dead on it, but it was all right, and so I kept working on it, and I wanted to finish it. And then you just wipe it away with a soft, clean rag, and sometimes I put some water. And of course, I've got references always with me, looking at brick buildings in Belgium. And so I wanted to finish it up, but I still having some thoughts in my mind about how it looked, and was I going to really be pleased with it? So I just started looking at it and thinking, and I slept on it for a while, and I kept looking at it and kept looking at it, and I liked it, but I just felt like things aren't right, and some of the paint scratched off, and when I was cleaning the grout out, and so I was like, well, let me try to salvage it, and I'll paint over these bricks just to make them look better. And, well, no. So I got some foam core board out. It's a foam with a hard paper shell on the outside, and I said, well, let me try to do it with Magic Sculpt on this, because I just thought the Magic Sculpt would be better. So I ditched the other pieces, and I put together the same thing except with the foam core, and I even I tore the whole thing apart. So I got the Magic Sculpt out and just started all over again. Everything I had done, I ditched, and I started putting Magic Sculpt on. And what I did this time, instead of obviously carving the lines in with X-Acto knife, I used a straight edge. And I put it into the Magic Sculpt for the bricks. I thought that I was going to get a better look doing it this way. Well, it's got its advantages and disadvantages. I was pretty pleased with the side how it came out. And I started doing the road section too, because I had always some extra Magic Sculpt, and I don't like to do too big of an area, because then it dries or too fast or whatever, and I'm still working on it. So I started working on the street section, curb, etc. And as always, I've just used the toothbrush to put in some texture onto where I'm going to make the cobblestones, and I have reference for cobblestones in Belgium. Then, of course, I'm looking at while I'm doing this, and I used a little tool that I made. You might have seen it in the other videos. And I just tried to recreate some of the look of the cobblestones that I have in some reference. Here it is, pretty much finished except for a little bit. And I went ahead and busted up the top since the city was bombed with the Zeppelin. So I put a little messed up, bombed out section at the top, and I still have to do the front there of the building, but everything's actually attached. And I used coffee stirs and some popsicle sticks and big giant matchsticks for the timbers in the building. I've started now the bottom. As I said, I do a little section at a time, and I started with the bottom, and I made a little tool here for the size of the bricks. Problem was, it was a lot easier to do vertical and horizontal lines when you're not having to push them into the clay. So I started that bottom section, and then I started working back on the cobblestones on the street, and you can see I've used reference here for what I wanted to do. And you should always have your reference. I mean, it just really helps give you a good feeling of confidence when you're working, because you know what you're doing when you have reference. So here's the building with more Magic Sculpt to finish up the front, textured. And then, of course, I'm going to have to put the bricks in it as well. And, of course, as you can see, here is the horizontal lines into the Magic Sculpt, and the bricks were made. Now I busted up a brick outdoors with a hammer to make some rubble, because when a building comes down, there's going to be lots of rubble and dust. So please, when you're making a diorama, vignette, whatever, and you have a destroyed building, or just remember the cause and effect. Look at how much damage you want, and also look how much damage the building has on it. And that's pretty good clue of what you need to do as far as what fell down. So I'm trying to do it here, and I've got some bricks from custom dioramas that I throw in there. Kind of arrange everything, do a little housekeeping into this big mess, and get ready to glue it down. I mix up my own glue, and here you can see just putting a little bit of fine sand in between to just give it some more effects of the rubble, and some pieces of wood timbers in there and things like that. And I just mix white glue with alcohol, rubbing alcohol, isopropyl, and I have an eyedropper, and I just mix it in there. I know you can buy this stuff, but it's so easy to make on the run here, and I have some already put together. This dries up really good, and it's just a great way to adhere your rubble in the places where you want it without having to put a lot of glue here and there under it, or however you want to do it. And you can see sprinkling sand in there too. I kept adding a little bit here and there. And of course I put it on the top of the building as well. And then I forgot to do a step, my step-by-steps. I forgot to put the spackling grout into the cobblestones. But luckily, with it being, all the destroyed stuff, it was really easy to just fill it into the places that are void because of all the destruction. It worked out well. And I'm just putting it in with a paintbrush, and you can see it all cleaned up and in place. All right, so the next step is painting the whole thing flat black. Once I painted it flat black, I was looking at the rubble, and it just seemed like with the building and everything I had, I wanted to add a little extra, so I put some more rubble down there. And of course, once you do that, then you got to paint flat black again, so it took care of that. And then with some Tamiya white acrylic, I just started adding some highlights to the whole scene here, just with the airbrush. This really brings out detail. It's not even a bad thing to do, just to see if you got some stuff you want to change, etc. But it helps bring out the starting details for the whole process of painting and weathering. My whole process, step by step, you'll see I do a lot of the same things over and over again, and I'm sure most modelers do. I mean, I look at all of our modeling community as different artists, and you look through history, different artists with great work, they all look different. So I really enjoy seeing different people's work and seeing the changes and how things are different. And it's just, somebody can do something different and still look great, totally different than somebody else using the same techniques. Anyhow, here's the adding some color to the bricks now. I went in and individually painted the bricks with the same colors I used on the building, of course. You don't have to be perfect here. And then with the AK markers, which these are really nice for just doing stuff like this instead of getting your brush out and paints. I mean, that's perfect. And you can see everything painted up. The bricks are on there painted, etc. You can see here the rubble, stuff like that. I started painting some of the timbers and a few other little things, but not much, just to give it some more tones and depth and different colors. And you can see also the top of the building too. I've got everything done the same as the bottom. And here's the scene so far, and then I sprayed the whole thing with clear matte finish. Now it was time for the spackling grout onto the building, and this part is definitely a lot better than when I put it over the foam. I just feel a little bit more confident here, and spraying that clear flat over it sure helps in protecting it, so that way when I start cleaning all this grout off, that it doesn't disturb the finish underneath and lift it, etc. And it's hard as it rocks. I just feel better. I'm a nuts and bolts kind of guy. So anyway, so then I got some beige paint here, artist oils, and I just did some dry brushing, just very light dry brushing over the scene. I didn't want it to be thick. I just wanted it to bring out the highlights. So you just do it very sparingly, and you'll just see another difference, and you're also adding another tone. The more tones and more colors you put over the top of each other, the more everything comes to life. So you can see I started with black, and then I did the light spray, and then I painted the bricks. And I'm going to end up putting a wash on there now too. Here's it after the dry brushing. And then, as I said a few minutes ago, the wash. And I've got a burnt umber mixed with black mixture here. And I'm just sparingly putting it some places heavier than others. Definitely around the groundwork here, I'm going to put it a little heavier. On the building, I didn't put it as heavy because there was going to be more and more effects that was going to be done to it. Wash was just put everywhere, especially in between the cobblestones, and starts bringing out the detail as always, and it's part of the weathering process. And then with just the dirty terpenoid mixture for cleaning the brush is when that's what I used for the walls, so that way I didn't get a lot of tone on there. And then of course I make my own pigments out of pastels, and they're put on using turpenoid as well. And a little bit goes a long way, so you can see you don't want to hardly see it because when it dries a lot darker than when it's applied. And then once the pastels dry, look at the difference how they look, and this really adds a lot of detail to the building. Now let's get to the figures. ICM figures, Belgian. The artwork looks like that building there. I wanted to change one of the figures up, so I used a Tamiya figure, just the legs, and I didn't want them all squatting down as they were. So I put the figure's legs, the Tamiya figure's legs on them, and I had to space it out a little bit, and then using Magic Sculpt, I added the rest of the coat, and it worked out really well. And doing that nun from a couple of videos ago sure gave me a lot of confidence for that. The figures are painted flat black and then sprayed over, giving the highlights with a matte white Tamiya paint acrylics. And then I got the oils out, artist oils, mixed them up because I wanted just to paint the faces and flesh and oils. Oils just really, I mean, you could mix these colors together and not even shade or highlight them, and they look actually pretty decent because there's a lot of color mixture in there. So just adding a little bit of highlights and shadows really make a difference with oils. Problem is you just don't want to build them up onto the surface of the figure. You don't want to goop it up, so they're put on and just the oil is spread very thin where it's just a glaze over the figure's face and hands. And like I said on my other videos, you kind of see the undercoat shows through a little bit. And then I got some acrylic paints and I started painting the pants, which were a light sky blue color. And of course I've got my reference all the time where I'm constantly looking at stuff to keep everything looking correct, and some inspiration, keep going, because these are very colorful figures compared to olive drab and field gray World War II stuff, khaki. I just used the method of glazing from the paints from dark to light, etc. And hopefully one day I can figure out a way to kind of show some of the stuff I do, but it's pretty close to what a lot of people are doing, so it's just very hard to show it on video. So I'm kind of trying to work towards something, maybe more instruction or theory on it, but that's it so far. These are really colorful figures, as I said before, and they were a nice change. The coats were supposed to be black, and my reference, they do look black, but a lot of photos, drawings are kind of really dark blue, so I added a little bit of blue to the black, and you really can't tell. I wish I would have added a little bit more. But this is my first painting these, so I was okay with it. If I did it again, I think I would add a little bit more blue to it, just to the contrast of the belting, etc., because it's got black belts and black coat, so I could have highlighted it more. But I did what I did. So anyways, doing these mini figures is just, it's a task, and it takes a while, and you have to have patience, dedication, persistence, discipline. I call it PPD, patience, persistence, and discipline. If you've got PPD, you can do anything. Well, now it was time to finish up the diorama base, and that was finishing the light, which I made out of clear plastic to fit into the light, and there's a little clear piece of plastic in there for the bulb. And then I needed a lot of different colors for the base because of the all the rubbles, so I just used all the colors that were mixed all together in my pastel box that were already just laying in there from all the pastels, and it worked out perfect. it was like the perfect kind of dusty color, but because it was made of all those different pastel colors, so I added it to everything. And it worked out really well. Just give it a little dusting here and there and more on the groundwork around the building. And then I made a newspaper from a Belgian August 1914, and I just printed out the size and glued it down, and it worked perfect. And here's the final scene. I love these bases with the clear acrylic enclosures to protect it. And if I was ever to sell and ship these things, and if everybody is interested in buying my work, just email me. My email is in my description here on YouTube. I've got stuff for sale. I just don't promote it very much, but always you can contact me. Really pleased with this scene. It's different. I'm interested in this World War I. I ordered some more figures. I don't know if I'll get to all of them, but I got all excited and I ordered a lot more stuff. So we'll see what happens. But I really enjoy doing this one, even though the figures are a lot of work, and I'm never really happy with them, but it's done, and it's more just experience under my belt. And I've got this thing finished. Here's the top of it, and I'm pretty pleased with it. I really like doing rubble and blowing up buildings. This one definitely was perfect for that. And I just want to thank everybody for looking at my videos and watching. And I don't even ask for subscribers, and I have a whole bunch of subscribers now and comments, and I really appreciate everybody. And I know I got all these likes and subscribers just hopefully because I'm helping people and you're learning something. So once again, thanks for watching, and stay tuned. I'm working on more stuff.